Your wealth has an expiration date. Here's how to rewrite it. There's an old saying that wealth built by one generation is spent by the second and gone by the third. It isn't superstition. Families who work decades to build something solid often watch it disappear in a single generation of heirs who never learned how it was built. This video is about the habits and structures that break that pattern. So what you build actually lasts. By the end of this, you'll understand three things wealthy families who last do differently. They spread their wealth across things that hold value. They build buffers so one bad decade can't wipe them out. And they hand down knowledge before they hand down money. The order you learn these in matters more than you'd think. Picture a family that inherits a comfortable sum and simply leaves it sitting in a bank account. It feels safe. But every year, rising prices quietly eat away at what that money can actually buy. Leave it alone for 20 or 30 years, and a fortune that once bought a house might barely buy a car. The second reason wealth disappears has nothing to do with markets, it's lifestyle. Each generation tends to spend as if the money will always be there, upgrading homes, cars, and habits to match a lifestyle the original earner never lived. Nobody notices the slow creep until the accounts are thin and the questions start. The third reason is concentration. A family fortune tied to one business, one property, or one industry looks strong right up until that one thing struggles. A single bad decade, a single failed venture, a single market downturn can undo 50 years of careful building if everything was riding on it. So the families who actually keep their wealth intact for generations aren't smarter or luckier than everyone else. They simply protect against these three failure points on purpose, as a habit, year after year. And the first protection starts with a decision about where you actually put your money in the first place. The families who preserve wealth don't keep it all in one form. They spread it across several stores of value that behave differently from each other. Some hold cash for flexibility. Some hold land or property that tends to keep pace with rising costs. Some hold hard assets like precious metals that have held purchasing power for centuries. Think of it like planting different crops in different fields instead of one giant field of a single crop. If one field floods or fails, the others still feed the family. Wealth works the same way. When one store of value struggles, the others carry the weight, and the total stays steady. Owning a piece of a real business is another store of value that endures, because a good business can raise its prices as costs rise, protecting its true worth over time. This is different from simply holding cash, which has no way to adjust when the cost of everything else goes up. None of these stores of value are perfect on their own. That's the point. Diversification isn't about finding the one perfect asset, it's about making sure no single mistake, no single market, and no single decade can take everything at once. But spreading your wealth out only protects you if you can also survive the unexpected. Every family that keeps its wealth for the long run has some kind of buffer, a reserve set aside purely to absorb shocks. A medical emergency, a slow year in the family business, a sudden repair on a property. Without a buffer, families are forced to sell their best assets at the worst possible time just to cover an emergency. A resilience buffer is usually kept boring on purpose, easy to access, not tied up in anything that has to be sold at a loss. It's not meant to grow. It's meant to be there, so the rest of the family's wealth never has to be touched during a hard stretch. Debt is the quiet enemy of resilience. Borrowing to fund a lifestyle instead of an asset that earns its keep is one of the fastest ways a family erodes what it worked so hard to build. The families who last treat debt as a tool use sparingly, never as a way to feel richer than they are. Put diversification and a resilience buffer together, and a family can absorb almost any single bad event, a bad year, a bad decision, a bad decade, without losing the foundation. But even the best financial structure eventually meets its biggest test. And it isn't a recession. Here's the test most families never see coming. It isn't a market crash. It's the moment the money passes to heirs who were never actually taught how any of it works. That's when family wealth quietly disappears fastest. And it's the one piece almost nobody prepares for. Stick around, because this next part matters most. And if this is changing how you think about your own family's plan, hit subscribe. We cover exactly this kind of thing every week. Money handed to someone who doesn't understand it rarely survives contact with the real world. An heir who never watched a budget get built, never sat through a hard financial decision, never learned to say no to an unnecessary purchase, is starting from zero no matter how large the number in the account is. The families who succeed across generations start teaching early and small. A child managing their own small allowance, a teenager tracking real spending, a young adult sitting in on a family financial conversation, even if they don't fully understand it yet. Knowledge like money compounds when you start early. Regular family conversations about money matter more than any single investment decision. Some families hold a yearly meeting where they walk through what the family owns, why, and what the plan is if something goes wrong. Silence around money doesn't protect anyone, it just guarantees the next generation has to relearn every lesson the hard way. Gradual responsibility beats sudden inheritance every time. A young adult who's managed a small account for years is far more ready for a large one than someone who's never managed anything at all and suddenly receives everything at once. Here's the insight most people skip entirely. The real inheritance was never the money itself. It's the judgment, the habits, and the values behind how that money was built and protected in the first place. Pass those down, and a family can rebuild wealth even after a setback. Skip them, and no amount of money survives contact with the next generation. Some families put this into a written form, a simple family plan that lays out what the family values, how decisions get made, and what each generation is expected to learn before they take on more responsibility. It doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to exist, and it needs to be shared, not hidden away. So the pattern that breaks generation after generation isn't really about markets or luck or timing. It's cash sitting still while prices rise, wealth resting on one shaky foundation, no buffer for the unexpected, and no one teaching the next generation how any of it works. Break any one of those, and you already beat most families who lose it all by the third generation. Break all four on purpose, and you're not just protecting money anymore. You're building something that actually lasts. This week, pick one conversation about money you've been avoiding with your family and have it. So here's the real question for your family. Are you building something that gets handed down or something that just gets spent? Type your answer below, money or knowledge. And if you want the next piece of this puzzle, there's another video waiting for you right here.